My name is Jack Marsh. I'm with Innovative Automation's Automation Support Group out of the Houston office, and we're here today in our world headquarters in Carrollton to talk about Yaskawa's MP2300Siec machine controller. I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about the differences between position controllers and motion controllers and machine controllers. There are position controllers out there on the market, and a lot of them, and those are very good devices for making single-axis motion or multi-axis motion where all you really care about are the endpoints. You don't really care about how it gets from point A to point B as long as your machine gets from point A to point B. But what if you've got something a little more complex? What if you need to cut a pattern, or what if you need to follow a circle, or what if you need to have multiple axes camming and gearing off of a master? Well, then that's a little more sophisticated than a position controller. That's when you would move up to a motion controller that has the computational ability to create those trajectories and make the axes follow those paths in space. But what if you also have sequential control, inputs and outputs and decisions that need to be made, and network capabilities where you need to talk to maybe a network in the factory, or upstream and downstream equipment, or an HMI for an operator interface? Well, that can be also incorporated into the same device, and that really becomes a machine controller. And you can eliminate a PLC for sequential control and a motion controller for the motion, put it all in one box, and you get something like the Yaskawa MP2300Siec machine controller. Let's take a look at the features here, or the hardware features, and see what we're dealing with. First thing you notice is the network capabilities built in. Yaskawa's MP2300Siec comes with Ethernet built in. And on that Ethernet port, you've got TCP/IP functionality to talk to networks, built-in web server, so you can plug your laptop into it and automatically see what the IP address is, set the IP address. You can read the status of the devices that it's talking to. You can actually control the motors through your web browser on your laptop without ever having any software loaded, using that built-in feature. As well as the Ethernet TCP/IP, it also has Ethernet IP and Modbus TCP. And using those languages, you can talk to many different devices out there. If you have to talk to an Allen Bradley controller, you can. You've got that language built in. If you need to talk to a Parker CTC HMI touchscreen, you can. You've got that built in. If you need to talk to some other touchscreen or some other device that's Ethernet capable, using Modbus or Ethernet IP, odds are you can do it, and that's all built in. The other network that's included is the network to talk to the axes of motion, the Mechatrol 2 network. That's an open motion control network. So basically you're eliminating a lot of wiring in the controller by simply taking one cable and daisy chaining from the controller to the first drive, to the second drive, and so on and so forth. With this MP2300Siec, you can get up to 16 axes of motion out of this one small box. There's a 4, an 8, and a 16 axis version. All the same size, all the same appearance. By doing that, you're eliminating the wiring of all these switches back to the controller, and each individual's axes can be wired to the axis, and then all that information is sent over the network, greatly simplifying the wiring and the length of distance that wiring needs to travel. We also have a built-in slot for I/O expansion on the MP2300. So you can have a 16 input, 16 output, encoder input card, or you can have it be all digital ins and all digital outs, up to 32 inputs, up to 32 outputs, or you could have stepper motor control, or encoder inputs, additional encoder inputs. Lots of functionality can be added by changing out that one expansion slot. So that's a very useful benefit as well. We already talked a little bit about some of the software that's built in the web browser, but I'd like to talk to a little bit about the Yaskawa software for programming and working with the controller directly. The IEC programming languages are an international standard that are taught in universities, used by many different manufacturers, that allow concepts that are learned with one manufacturer to easily translate to other manufacturers. So by embracing that IEC standard, Yaskawa has made the applicable user base much broader. That IEC language embraces structured text, which is great for doing math equations, for example. Function blocks used in ladder, which are very good for sequential control, dealing with the inputs and outputs, specifying motion, and then also sequential function chart. And if you think of sequential function chart as a flow chart with steps that happen and then a transition and going to the next step, you can see maybe how that would make programming a machine pretty simple. These things happen until this happens. Then this other set of things happens. And so that's a really different way to look at programming. If you're used to ladder-based programming, sequential function chart can be really eye-opening, and you can build the sections in ladder and have the overall structure of the machine, how it operates from phase step 1 to step 2, step 3, operate just like a flow chart. It's a really useful tool if you haven't used it before. The function blocks that are built in for doing motion, for example, turning these servo amplifiers on and off, establishing communications, reading and writing parameters. Maybe you need to have a different torque limit. Maybe you're screwing on a cap and you want to have a high torque value when you're bringing the cap on, but once you get towards the end, you want to have a very tightly controlled torque value so you don't over-tighten that cap. Well, you can change that torque value by writing a parameter over the network, and you can do that with a function block that's pre-built. Homing an axis, making a jog move, gearing one axis to the other axis, camming. Those are all pre-programmed function blocks that are based on the PLC Open Standard. That's another international standard that defines the look and feel of function blocks. The guts of it and how it works are all done by Yaskawa, so you don't have to deal with that. But the outside, the interface that you deal with, are going to be standard if it's based on PLC Open from different manufacturers. So they all have a common look and feel, and Yaskawa has built their function blocks to incorporate that. Some of these things that we've talked about, like the Ethernet network and the ability to talk to a lot of devices, can help in a lot of different ways. For example, a lot of our customers, especially say in the packaging world, have customer-specified controllers, an Allen Bradley controller. They're standardized on Allen Bradley and they want Allen Bradley in their plant. But our user might be very familiar with the Yaskawa and know how to do that and really want to use that for the project. Well, they can use the smallest, simplest, least expensive Allen Bradley PLC to satisfy the letter of the law, the customer specification, talk to it over the built-in Ethernet IP interface, and then let the Yaskawa do all the heavy lifting. So they can really save a lot of time and money on the Allen Bradley specification, but still get the customer what they want, as well as the performance that they can get out of the Yaskawa MP2300Siec. So if there's any ideas that you have or any problems that you can think of that might use some of this, please call us. We're happy to help, and we're the home of legendary customer service, and we want to help you any way we can. Thank you.